Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sin from ArtScience Museum and your host for today. We're thrilled to see all of you this afternoon at the opening symposium organized in conjunction with the launch of Frida Forever, a sumptuous season of exhibitions and programs that explores the life and the work of the extraordinary Mexican artist and cultural icon, Frida Kahlo. Hope and Defiance Frida Kahlo Opening Symposium draws us into Frida's intimate universe, exploring the enduring impact and the legacy of her life and work. The program discusses how Kahlo's artistic practice, ideology, sartorial identity was shaped by her cultural heritage and experience of gender and disability. It then further delves into the ideas, the universal themes, and emotions generated around Frida as an iconic figure to consider her profound impact that really extends beyond the art world. And today we're joined by the CEO of Layers of Reality, Jordi Sellas, who will be speaking later about Frida, the life of an icon, the immersive biographical exhibition, which expresses how the studio creates transformative experiences with new immersive languages. The exhibitions project team from ArtScience Museum, comprising Gail, Joshua Lau, and Victoria Chua, will draw us into the adaptation of Frida, the Life of an Icon exhibition for our space. And they will also share about the making of the companion show, Laid Bare, Frida's Inner World, which examines the narrative of the artist's complex medical history. It's an absolute pleasure having fashion curator and head of School of Fashion at LaSalle College of the Arts, Circe Henestrosa, join us today for today's program as well. Circe is curatorial advisor for Laid Bare, Frida's Inner World, and she will offer insights into Frida's self-fashioning that was informed by her ethnicity, ideology, and life with a disability. And the final talk for today will be presented by Curator of Mexican Art and Culture, Lidia Riveros, who will share about her commissioned installation, Floral Passage, a tribute to Frida Kahlo, drawing inspiration from Frida's universe and the beautiful Mexican cultural heritage. We will be in conversation with all of them, as well as ArtScience Museum's Director of Programs, Exhibitions, and Museum Services, Adrian George, in the final Q&A segment. And to open today's program, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Vice President of Attractions and ArtScience Museum at Marina Bay Sands, Honor Harger, for her opening remarks. Honor, please.
Thank you, Zin, and good afternoon. Welcome to ArtScience Museum, and such a big thank you to all of you for braving today's extraordinary weather to be with us this afternoon. We're here for the launch symposium for Frida Forever. This is an exciting new season at ArtScience Museum, all about the life and work of the iconic artist Frida Kahlo. Through two special exhibitions and programs, such as today's symposium, we're celebrating one of the most influential figures in modern art, specifically through the vivid narrative of her life. Frida Kahlo's art is known for its raw and unapologetic depiction of womanhood and pain. But Frida Forever looks beyond the canvas to trace her life story and the pivotal moments that made her who she was. It explores the interplay between her medical conditions, her exuberant embrace of Mexican culture, her revolutionary zeal, and the passions that defined her life. As Zin has shared, at the center of the season is Frida Kahlo, the Life of an Icon, a biographical exhibition that narrates Frida's life through interactive installations, cutting-edge technologies, and 360-degree projections that invite visitors to literally step inside Frida's story. And I'm delighted that Jordi from Layers of Reality, the creators of that exhibition, will be speaking shortly. Alongside it is Laid Bare, Frida's Inner World, a companion exhibition curated with ArtScience Museum. We've worked hand in hand with Frida's great niece, Cristina Kahlo and the renowned curator Circe Henestrosa, one of the world's leading experts on Frida Kahlo. Laid Bare takes a more intimate look at the person behind the icon, revealing the way that Frida's medical conditions helped shape her. It brings science into Frida's story, detailing her medical journey, her relationship with doctors, and the physical conditions that she lived with. The show includes photographs, diary pages, contemporary artworks, exclusive interviews with Frida Kahlo, and a rare look at Frida's medical records, which have never been seen before outside of the US. We've brought a new narrative into Frida's story by inviting doctors from Singapore to provide contemporary analyses of Frida's medical conditions, discussing the kinds of physical and mental challenges that she would have experienced. Today, you'll be hearing from the ArtScience Museum curators of that exhibition, and we're thrilled that our co-curator, Circe Henestrosa, will be giving a keynote address on her curatorial relationship with Frida Kahlo later today. Frida Forever also includes a VR experience created by Layers of Reality and Built Studios, which is now on show here at the VR gallery at level 4. Offering new immersive perspectives on Frida's artistic imagination. And crowning the season is the newly commissioned installation by Mexican artist and curator Lidia Riveros, who's based here in Singapore. Her stunning flower archway marks the entrance of one exhibition and the exit of another, celebrating the motifs in Frida's art and her Mexican cultural heritage. And Lidia will be speaking about her work later on this afternoon. Frida Forever is one of the cornerstones of ArtScience Museum's Year of Extraordinary Women. This year, our exhibitions, including the 2 Frida Kahlo exhibitions and the exhibition Goddess downstairs at level 3, celebrate stories of women who have challenged narratives and defied expectations. Frida Kahlo certainly did that. She was born on the 6th of July, 1907, in Mexico City, and grew up against the backdrop of the Mexican Revolution. Her life was marked by physical suffering, beginning with polio in her childhood, and later a severe accident at the age of 18 that caused lifelong complications. Yet Frida transformed the afflictions of her body and channeled her experiences into art. She created around 200 paintings and other artworks in her life, of which 55 were self-portraits, rich with surrealism and symbolism. Frida's tendency to incorporate her personal trauma into her art made her an icon of bravery and courage in the face of adversity. She made women's experiences a serious subject for art, but her story transcends gender. Personal and profound, Frida's work commands attention from all audiences, men, women, and children alike. Her art emerged not in spite of her physical challenges, but because of them. She shows how art can be a powerful vector for healing, and also draws attention to the often invisible experiences of those living with disabilities, as she did for most of her life. Frida died 70 years ago at the tragically young age of 47, but her life continues to resonate with millions of people across the globe. Frida Forever shows how she lived with authenticity, courage, and creativity, and encourages all of us to do the same. It's been a deeply collaborative process to put the Frida Forever season together, and there's a few people I'd really like to mention by way of thank you. For Frida Kahlo, Life of an Icon, thanks go to our collaborators, Layers of Reality, who have themselves worked with the Frida Kahlo Corporation on the exhibition, and we're grateful to have that team with us today. For Laid Bare, Frida's in a World, I want to thank Frida Kahlo, who has been so generous in loaning us Frida's medical records, as well as personal family photographs. And we're deeply grateful to our co-curator, Circe Henestrosa, for the support that she gave our team in putting that exhibition together. Our curatorial team for the Frida Forever season is Gail Chin, Joshua Lau, and Victoria Chua. And they've worked intensely and with great dedication to bring these exhibitions and programs to you. They've been very well led by Adrian George. My thanks also go to our programs team for the educational offerings that they've developed for the season, and especially to Baoxin, Zhang and Zhang for today's symposium. Frida is once thought to have said, "Passion is the bridge that takes you from pain to change." She was able to draw on vast reservoirs of strength to transform her medical conditions into artwork of verve and vigor, passion and poetry. In the crucible of her own body, she forged a gallery of pain and beauty. Her work was a defiant act of survival, where her suffering metamorphosed into magic and metaphor. She showed us that art can be a powerful catalyst for emotional and physical healing. In today's symposium, exploring her hope and defiance, we hope to foster moments of connectedness and find that little bit of Frida that lives in all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Well, our first speaker in the program today is Jordi Sellas, who is CEO of Layers of Reality, and it's an extended reality studio whose mission is to shape a new relationship between arts, technology, science, and society. The studio approaches digital art projects as an open place for all kinds of audiences, and their work on Frida, the life of an icon, is a perfect illustration of this philosophy. The exhibition is shaped by an immersive vocabulary of digital art, historical photographs, projections, installations, and a VR experience as well. And it's devised to keep the power and the clarity of Frida's story front and center, yet be able to cut into it for visitors to be able to have intimate encounters with her iconography, her artistic practice, her persona, and her relationship with her body, as well as the events that make her such an exceptional artist and icon. And it's my absolute pleasure welcoming Jordi for his talk on the making of Frida, the life of an icon. Jordi, please.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to all the ArtScience Museum team, everyone working here. It's been a big pleasure to be creating all this project together. As I said on the media day a couple of days ago, this is the stop number 20 of Frida Kahlo, the Life of an Icon exhibition. Started 3 years ago, and it has been in cities like Barcelona when it opened for the first time, Brussels, New York, Montreal, Sydney, Lisbon, many others. And more than 1 million people have visited the exhibition around the world. But this is not another stop. This is a very special stop because we are in a very special house that works art, science, and technology all together to tell stories, to connect with audiences, to connect with people, creating this link, this new link between art, science, and technology and the society. Layers of reality. Yeah, we are this studio born in Barcelona. We created the show together with the Frida Kahlo Corporation. Beatriz Alvarado, the CEO of Frida Kahlo Corporation, is here with us these days, and I'm so happy that she could also come here to see this very special installation of the life of an icon in the ArtScience Museum. I always say that's a work that's been done between the two sides of the Atlantic, between Mexico, Ciudad de Mexico, and Barcelona. Both teams, curatorial teams, and creative and production teams working together to create something different, something special that we called an immersive biography. Now everybody talks about immersivity. Everything is immersive. Immersive restaurants, immersive, exhibitions, immersive movies, immersive, everything is immersive. But in fact, life is immersive. No, we are now living an immersive experience here, and there are no impossible glasses in our heads or projections, just one projection here, traditional projection, and we're living something special together. Yeah? We're live here, living this experience together. This is really a truly immersive experience. So further than the naming that's being used now in terms of marketing to say everything that has this naming called immersive can be something interesting for the bigger audience. What we talk about is about XR exhibitions, exhibitions made with extended reality technologies. I was saying on the media day that we imagine the audiovisual world as a world that's been trapped inside a rectangle during more than 100 years. Humans, we've been sharing our information, our knowledge during centuries inside this form that we define as a rectangle. A painting in a rectangle, a book, yeah, it's a rectangle, a poster. Yeah. When the photography started, I'm sorry for the ones who were here on the media day, I'm repeating it will be short, yeah, but for me that's important. We've been encapsulating the information inside the rectangle for centuries, and when photography was invented in the 19th century, they were doing the first photographs inside the rectangle. When the Lumiere brothers invented the movies, the first moving images, that in the end are a lot of photographs, one next to the other, they invented the movies in a rectangle. Why? Because photographs were rectangles. So when the television appeared, all the audiovisual content of the 20th century is based in being inside a rectangle. We've been inside that rectangle, yeah, for centuries. In the 21st century, the new audiovisual breaks the rectangle. And the technologies that break that rectangle are the XR technologies, the technologies of the extended reality. And that includes a lot of different kinds of techniques. Virtual reality, augmented reality, holograms, projections, 3D mappings, immersive rooms, a lot of different kinds of technologies that we are just now trying to understand how they work and how they can connect with audiences. It's not about when the Lumiere brothers were playing the movie of that train coming into the station, that people were like, wow, there's a train moving on the wall. Nobody else before had seen a moving image on a screen. But when you have seen 10 times, 100 times that train entering into the station, that train, it's not interesting anymore. You want to understand what happens to that train. What station is that? What's going on in that train? Maybe there's something interesting happening there. That is the storytelling. And that is the key that we, people like all the ArtScience museum team, or in Layers of Reality in the studio, and a lot of creative studios around the world are exploring a brand new era of audiovisual. And it's not about technology. Technology is just a tool that has to allow us to connect with new audiences, with already existing audiences, and with the audiences of the future. This is what we have tried to do, and you will see it maybe later when you go down to see the exhibition of Frida Kahlo, The Life of an Icon, and here in the virtual reality installation that we have just in this floor. I will just project you a short video, 1 minute, to show you a little bit the reality of this. Just in 4 years, with that dream of breaking the rectangle, creating a new audiovisual that's all around us, is sensible. You can touch it, you can interact with it, you can move it inside it. This is what we've done. So we started with Frida Kahlo working in the Frida Kahlo exhibition we really understood that we needed to make a step forward. Everybody was talking about, at that time, Van Gogh immersive, or these kind of big exhibitions with big paintings on the walls projected and somehow moving or taking life. Yeah. We understood that with Frida we needed to do something different. Not just because at that time there were a lot of so-called immersive exhibitions with big projections on the walls, but because also working with Beatriz Alvarado y Maria Luisa Cárdenas, especially in the documentation and curatorial part, we understood that one of the really interesting things about Frida was to explain her life in a different way, to explain why, or to try to answer the question, why Frida Kahlo is today, 2024, a bigger icon, a much more famous artist than she ever was during all her life. And much more, of course, than she was in 1954 when she died. What happened? Why? There are a lot of different answers in the exhibition. You will see them. And adding the other exhibition that is included in this Frida Forever season here at the ArtScience Museum, you will have the opportunity to learn and also to have the possibility to, let me find the precise word, to try to find the correct answer, to this question. It's not about just one thing. It's about a lot of things that are together in her life. That's why we start with the altar, because it's an homage to the artist and to the person. Then you will see, I'm not talking about all the installations of the exhibition, you will see it later, but I will just focus in 4 of them that I think that are interesting and explain a little bit this way that we try to break the rectangle. One is called the accident, the instant. As you know, that accident changed Frida's life forever. She was about to study medicine. She was about to have, let's say, a traditional career in her life, and the accident put her on a bed, and that bed was an object that would be with her like forever during all her life. That precise moment is explained in the exhibition with this hologram in a technique that we call multi-layer projection, created with 5 different layers of projection, that creates this image of a porcelain figure of Frida breaking in thousands of pieces, and after it's broken, it's reconstructed again in the same body, but with a completely different person. A lot of different objects related to what happened that day are flying around this installation that we did in Layers of Reality together with the Catalan studio Nueve Ojos, called 9 Eyes, specialized in this kind of multi-layer projections. One of the other installations that I think that are interesting to explain this new way to explain things is technically, we call it 3D mapping. So it's a mapping over real 3D objects. This installation called The Dream is an installation that you will see downstairs, inspired in the famous painting Henry Ford Detroit Hospital of Frida Kahlo. And you will see that in this installation, life and pain are connected as an infinite loop. Rebirth, in terms of these powerful green leaves that appear on the bed and make our Frida, this beautiful, wonderful Mexican actress that called Monica Mar, that sings all the songs that you will listen in the exhibition, and you will see her also in the virtual reality. She appears also on the bed with the different symbology that usually Frida painted in her paintings. It's an installation that connects what is physical and what is digital together to recreate a way to explain what happened. In the first installation that we did, here is a little bit different. Both the accident, the instant, and the dream were together in the same room, one facing the other, to, in one way, create this dialogue between the black and white installation of that moment with the colorful and full of energy installation of the dream. You will see it downstairs. One of the other installations is people love infinity rooms. Here you have one of the most beautiful and most, I would say, photographed infinity rooms in Asia, because everybody has seen the infinity room of the ArtScience Museum by Team Lab. This is a small infinity room and is designed as an interactive room where you can walk and interact with the different objects that are an important part in the symbology of Frida Kahlo's work. It's a colorful installation made between layers of reality and Play a Bit studio that's especially dedicated into interactive installations. They work specifically and very well for the younger ones, for kids. And this installation for us is really important because it helps us to link our exhibitions that usually maybe they have a really serious and transcendent kind of content with family audiences and mainstream audiences, creating all these different layers of lecture inside the show, of reading the contents of the show that I think that are interesting to make it accessible to everybody. What we think and what we like to think is that we are mediators between one interesting story that needs to be told and the audience that really wants to learn about that story and maybe they don't know it yet. So we like to fill in the middle, and that's why we create these different installations. The last one I want to explain you, and you will see much more downstairs and also here, is our immersive room. The immersive room is this room with the four walls and the floor. Everything is a 360 projection. It's a movie that we created in layers together with Marte Studio. Marte Studio is a studio really dedicated to music clips. So when we started working with them, we were trying to create, at that time, what we were saying, like Frida meeting Rosalia, you know, like say another big Catalan star. Yeah, so we're saying that we needed to find this feeling, this energy of the 21st century look, 2021, at that time when we were producing the movie. We used a digital collage technique that uses more than 40 different sources of documentation that they have never been together like this. So we have photographs from a lot of different magazines, newspapers, personal photographs, movies, all together linked with the newly created layer of collage, digital collage content. And especially also, you will listen to that when you go downstairs. A beautiful soundtrack. We have a resident composer at home. So our composer, Rafael Plana, together with singer Monica Mar, Mexican actress and singer, they recreated 10 of the most famous traditional Mexican songs. So if you are into the traditional Mexican folk music, you will recognize all of them. If not, you will discover them, and you will never stop listening to them in our Spotify channel that you will see also downstairs. Yeah. So these are just a few examples of how we try to transform this rectangle that we were inside into a new way to connect with audiences, explaining, telling stories that for us are interesting and also meaningful. I would really encourage you to dive inside this incredible story. Now we'll have a lot of more people that can explain much more and in a deeper way a lot of things about this Frida Forever season. But I would really encourage you to live this experience downstairs, and also if you can and you have time, here upstairs in the floor 4, you will be able also to live the VR experience, Cadavre Exquise, the exquisite corpse, this game that the surrealists played, like creating, an impossible body that they were playing together when they were creating, co-creating, together. So you will live something like that. And at the end of the VR experience, like 8 minutes, 9 minutes, you will finally see our proposal, our answer. It's our answer. You can find other answers. You will find our answer about why Frida Kahlo is today that big icon that she wasn't in the mid-20th century when she died. Thank you very much.
The staging of Frida, the life of an icon at ArtScience Museum is augmented with the curatorial contributions of our exhibitions project team, which manifested in the evolved presentation for the Singapore iteration, but also in its companion show, Laid Bare, Frida's Inner World. And it's my pleasure welcoming my colleagues, Gail Chin, who is exhibition producer at ArtScience Museum, Joshua Lau later, who will be the assistant curator, who is the assistant curator, and also Victoria Chua, Curator of Exhibitions and Productions, for their joint talk. And of course, I'm very pleased to welcome Gail on stage to take the joint presentation forward. Gail, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm excited to be speaking about the overarching concept of why ArtScience Museum is launching Frida Forever. My resonance to Frida Kahlo began 17 years ago. I fondly remember flipping through a book to see one of her paintings titled, What Water Gave Me. The work immediately stood out to me. Unlike most of her other famous self-portraits, this work hosts various symbolic representations of various events in Frida's life. In the water, themes of death, happiness, sadness, comfort, pain, past, and present are intertwined. Painted from the perspective of lying in a bathtub of grey water, this work resonated with me on a very personal level, how art can be a powerful tool for self-expression. Her vivid imagery allows me to find connections in my own lived experience of loss and struggles. Kahlo's work speaks about being unapologetically vulnerable and honest about the human spirit. Despite this, art enables new strength in expression. Frida Kahlo is probably known as one of the most recognizable icons in the art world. With her vibrant traditional Mexican attire, bold eyebrows, and mustache, which she deliberately exaggerated in numerous self-portraits. Her decorated hair, with flowers and ribbons, all making her image a statement of empowerment, challenging beauty standards of the time and even now. And Frida Kahlo was just not an icon, she was a human being whose life story transcends the boundaries of time and place. Born in 1907 in Mexico during a revolutionary period in Mexican's history, Frida's life was marked by both physical and emotional pain. She suffered polio at the age of 6, leaving her right leg shorter and thinner. At the age of 18, she was involved in a fatal accident that left her with lifelong injuries and chronic pain. Spinal fusion surgeries that caused her health to deteriorate further. Yet it was during her recovery that Frida discovered her passion for painting, using art as a means of coping and expressing her innermost feelings. Her relationships with people, particularly her tumultuous marriage to Diego Rivera, and many of her lovers, challenged traditional norms of sexuality and gender, reminding us that love has no boundaries. As an artist, Frida Kahlo defied convention at every turn. Her bold, vivid paintings were a reflection of a complex inner world, exploring themes of identity, gender, and mortality with raw honesty and emotion. Through her art, Frida challenged societal norms and embraced her unique identity as a woman, a Mexican, and a person with disabilities. Despite facing numerous obstacles throughout her life, Frida refused to be defined by her pain. Instead, she transformed her suffering into a source of strength until her death in 1954. Her legacy is also seen manifested in Lidia Riveros' work, Floral Passage, a tribute to Frida. As the artist curator mentioned in her own words, the heart of Frida have touched the lives of many others, and we are so pleased to see her work before entering the two exhibitions downstairs. So Frida Kahlo is a representation of resilience, defiance, and self-expression, a story of tragedy, adversity, and triumph. She continues to make a profound impact on the world, not only from her talents, but by living life in her own terms. The two exhibitions aim to celebrate her life and analyze her life through immersive language and a rare medical lens that opens up more conversation about the artist's life. She reminds us that there are infinite possibilities beyond our physical limitations and liberation in our vulnerability, that people are able to find moments of connections to her, and that is what Frida Forever represents. I'll now pass the time to Victoria Chua, who will speak more about the exhibition making process for our anchoring exhibition this season, Frida Kahlo, The Life of an Icon.
Thank you, Gail, and good afternoon, everyone. It's really good to see all of you here with us today. So I'm Victoria, one of the curators who worked on Frida Kahlo, The Life of an Icon. And I would just like to start by sharing that Frida Kahlo, The Life of an Icon is developed by Layers of Reality, together with the Frida Kahlo Corporation. So this immersive exhibition takes us on a unique approach of storytelling through 8 thematic spaces. So it's a combination, of course, of text, photographs, films, multi-layered technology, 360-degree projections, and interactive spaces that charters the life of Frida Kahlo. So Frida, of course, is a symbol of self-empowerment, but also a representation of resilience and diversity. And without a doubt, it was not very difficult for us to be inspired to do an exhibition of her. So while there are 8 spaces, today I will only be talking about 3. So I highly encourage all of you to go downstairs after this and take a look. But first, I would like to start with the Garden of Love. So we are very proud of this. It is a special section that has been designed and produced by the ArtScience Museum, and a big shout out as well to my colleagues from programs, especially Gillian, who had so creatively thought of this space. So we were really inspired by Frida's garden, but this section also really talks about Frida's love for life. So that also encapsulates Diego Rivera, her love and her husband, her political beliefs in communism, her love for painting, her friendships, and of course her other romantic relationships as well with both men and women, and her deep desire to become a mother. And if you can't already tell from the screen where, Frida is photographed in her garden, we have many of those images as well of Frida, that she often loved taking photographs with her animals and her plants. So as I was sharing earlier, so we were inspired by Frida's own garden, where it's located at the Blue House, are also known as La Casa Azul. And she had spent most of her time recuperating in her 4 walls of the Blue House. She had also spent a lot of time in her garden, and it's also seen in her painting that can be seen up there. And her painting as well of plants and flowers were frequently allegorical in emotion. It was sexual and cultural terms, and expressed her senses of wit and play of double meanings. And at times she would even create half plant, half animal hybrid characters in her paintings, depicting herself and those around her. And another space that was very special to us was La Rosita. This was one of the exhibition spaces that was created by us. So this space really talks about her as a teacher, but also about the self-portraits that she did. But really, despite being able to bear her own children, Frida's love and maternal instincts never left her, so she treated her students just as her own. And she encouraged them to paint murals, go out in the streets to really explore the Mexican culture. And these are actually all photographs of the murals that were done by her students. And the image on the right is of her and her students in 1943 when the murals were first launched and they were celebrating. And you can see Frida also pouring some pulque out. So apart from challenging her students to go beyond the classroom, pulqueria La Rosita, which is located a short distance away from Casa Azul, was where her students would paint these murals. And we were inspired by the streets of Mexico as well to come up and design this space in the exhibition. Mexican muralism was a movement beginning in the early 1920s till the 1940s in Mexico, in which the government commissioned artists to make art about the country's history and present a powerful vision of its future. The movement followed the Mexican Revolution, and it was inspired by the idealism of revolution, where artists created epic, politically charged public murals. And the atmosphere we also wanted to bring out and create through this exhibition space. And last but not least, of course, is the immersive biography. It's not every exhibition that we get to walk into and really say that we get to step into the life of the artist. So in this 360-degree projection, you'll get to sit and watch and enjoy for 29 minutes from the very start of her life, where she was born in 1907, but frequently misrepresented her birth in 1910, all the way till the point that she had passed on in 1943. So this is not only just a feast for your eyes, but for your ears as well, as you enjoy the soundtracks and the vibrations and really feel the experience of this space. So now I will pass my time to Joshua as he talks more about the life of Frida beyond her as a painter and the fashion icon that she is. Thank you.
Good afternoon, I'm Joshua. I was part of the curatorial team for the second exhibition in ArtScience Museum's Frida Forever season, Laid Bare Fridas in the World. This exhibition was curated and produced by ArtScience Museum with the support of Cristina Kahlo Alcala, the great niece of Frida Kahlo, and one of the world's leading Frida scholars and curators, Circe Henestrosa, who we are very honored to have with us here today. Laid Bare Fridas in the World is positioned as a companion exhibition to Frida Kahlo, the life of an icon. This exhibition examines the relationship Kahlo had with her body and the profound impact these medical struggles had on her artistic practice. Revolving around the last few years of Frida's life, the exhibition features photographs, diary pages, contemporary art, and most crucially, medical documents that are being shown for the first time outside the United States. The displayed collection from Cristina Kahlo Alcala charts Frida's time at the American-British Cadre Hospital in Mexico City. This was the hospital where Frida Kahlo underwent 7 spinal surgeries in 1950, an amputation of her lower right limb in 1953, and was cared for up until her passing in 1954. The collection presents a rare perspective on Frida, showcasing a more personal, intimate, and casual side to the renowned artist, uncovering the woman behind the facade of flowers and Tijuanan clothing that she often wore to conceal her broken body. For Cristina, this collection bridges the gap between Frida the artist and Frida the human being. Frida Kahlo, like all of us, had a complex identity consisting of boundless nuances. As such, it is important to come to understand her through more than one lens. We often view her through the prism of fine art analysis, but this exhibition presents another angle, a scientific and medical lens. Observing the convergence of medicine, health, and art, this exhibition explores who Kahlo was as a woman and a human being, peeling back the layers behind her status as a cultural icon. Frida Kahlo's initial dream was to become a physician. It wasn't until her accident in 1925 that everything changed. On the way home from school, a streetcar crashed into the bus she was riding. This near-fatal accident left her with serious spinal fractures, a broken pelvis, 11 fractures in her right foot, a dislocated elbow, and a serious puncture wound in her abdomen. To add to this complexity, Frida had polio as a child, which left her right leg shorter. This web of unfortunate medical complications resulted in Frida undergoing at least 22 surgeries throughout her life. She never fully healed and lived with chronic pain until her passing on 13 July 1954. Having undergone so many medical procedures across the span of her life, Frida Kahlo was often confined to a bed for long periods of rest and recovery. To allow Frida to see herself, Frida's mother installed a mirror above her bed and a special easel for her to pass the time by painting. Soon, Frida's own reflection became the main subject of her paintings. From that point on, the Frida we now know and love was born. Here, lying in bed in recovery, she became the artist only through the accident. She became an artist because of medical complications, and today we dive back into her medical records as we humanize her, coming to better understand how she grappled with chronic pain and found peace with her human condition. Frida Kahlo was not afraid of depicting her body and her medical complications in her self-portraits. In Henry Ford Hospital, she depicts herself bleeding out on a hospital bed, directly referencing her miscarriage. In The Wounded Deer, Frida depicts herself as a deer shot by multiple arrows, wounded and bleeding out. Yet maybe one of the most visceral paintings Frida ever did that interpreted her chronic pain and lifelong injuries might be The Broken Column. In it, Frida depicts tears streaming down her face with nails all over her body. Yet what is probably the most striking element has to be the manner in which she depicts her spine. She paints her spine as a precarious broken stone column on the verge of falling apart and collapsing. The only thing holding her body together is a white medical corset strapped tightly, binding and restricting her. These are just a few examples that highlight how Frida embraced her broken body through her artistic practice, finding beauty in her fragmented form and processing the reality of her chronic pain through the canvas. The figures in Kahlo's self-portraits were not fictional characters, but expressions of her lived experience. Laid bare, Frida's inner world looks beyond Kahlo's artistic interpretations, presenting Kahlo's fragmented body and her medical equipment in an unfiltered light, in order to accurately analyze these complex medical documents of Frida's time at the American British Cowdrey Hospital. The curatorial team was deeply engaged with medical professionals here in Singapore who were able to provide contemporary insights into Frida Kahlo's conditions. The 4 medical professionals featured in the exhibition include Dr. Terry Teo Hong Lee and Dr. Kinjal Mehta, both with the Department of Orthopedic Surgery at Changi General Hospital, Singapore, as well as Dr. Zhang Zhongxi, an anesthetist, and Ms. Constance Peng, a clinical psychologist. Together, they sparked dialogue around the intersection of health and identity, helping us better understand the experience of chronic pain and the severity of the surgeries Kahlo underwent, commenting on how this could have affected her manner of life. I will highlight 3 key moments in the exhibition, the first being an examination of Frida Kahlo's spinal column. One of the key pieces in this exhibition is this beautiful image of Frida Kahlo, taken by American photographer Nicholas Murray. In the image, she lies on a bed gazing into the camera with her back exposed. What is really interesting to note is the year that this image was taken. It was taken in 1946, the same year that Frida produced her famous double self-portrait, Tree of Hope, Remain Strong. In the left half of the painting, we see a figure of Frida lying on a hospital bed. She paints herself in a particularly similar position as she was captured in the photograph by Nicholas Murray. The only difference between the two bleeding incisions on her back. It is recorded that Frida underwent a spinal fusion surgery in 1946. Hence, this suggests that the Nicholas Murray photograph of Frida was taken before she underwent spinal fusion surgery, and the painting was likely her artistic response to the surgery. In our conversation with Dr. Terry Teo, he noted that the position of the 2 incisions and the shape of the incisions in the painting correlate strongly to spinal fusion surgery, therefore providing greater confirmation for us that Frida really did undergo this surgery in 1946. The straight line down the back is a typical incision done by doctors to assess the spinal structure, while the curved incision, closer to the pelvic bone, is usually where bone is grafted, to then be placed in between the fractured vertebrae of the spine to encourage the fractured spine to heal and fuse. Additionally, we have on display in the exhibition an X-ray of Frida's spine from April 1954, 3 months before her passing. Tree of Hope, Remain Strong is Frida's personal and artistic perspective on her body and her health. But this X-ray allows us to view Frida's body without artistic filters, viewing her body as it was. In the X-ray, we can clearly see 4 metal screws and a metal plate, which is a clear indicator of the spinal fusion surgery in Frida's lower back. The second prominent chapter in our exhibition examines Frida's lower limbs. As we know, Frida had polio as a child, and her right leg was shorter. She also had 11 fractures in her right foot due to the accident in 1925. As a result, Frida suffered from vascular insufficiency, which is a condition in which a patient's blood circulation is weakened due to damaged veins. Eventually, in 1953, Frida Kahlo would have her lower right limb amputated below the knee due to experiencing gangrene, a condition in which bodily tissue gets infected and dies. In the exhibition, we actually have 3 medical documents directly related to Frida's amputation in 1953. We have Frida's inpatient vitals chart from her stay at the American British Cowdrey Hospital, dated the 10th through to the 19th of August 1953. It charts her body temperature, pulse, and breathing rate. In order for us to better understand the lines of the data, we actually showed this to Dr. Zhang, our anesthetist from Changi General Hospital, who managed to help us better decipher the data. His attention was drawn to the line at the top of the graph, which refers to her bodily temperature. We see the word operation written at the 11th August mark. Soon after, we see Frida's temperature on the 12th of August mark having a large spike. This suggests that Frida had a fever the day after the operation, possibly due to an infection. In the second amputation report, we spot the name of her doctors, notably Dr. Juan Farrell, who became one of her closest confidants. He was also involved in her 7 spinal surgeries in 1950. Secondly, prior to undergoing surgery, it states that Frida was actually medicated with Demerol, a drug used to relieve severe pain. And lastly, her post-operation condition is marked as between bueno, good, and delicado, delicate. The third clinical sheet is actually dated to the 10th of August, the day before the amputation. It states a rare known fact for many, that Frida's blood group was actually A positive. This report was likely ordered in case she needed a blood transfusion during the amputation. In our conversations with the medical professionals, we further discussed the experience of chronic pain for amputees. The medical professionals we consulted mentioned that there is a higher chance for amputees to experience chronic pain. This is because in our brains, there exists a neurological map of the body in the mind. Just because a limb is amputated doesn't mean that this map is removed from our brains. Therefore, signals can still be sent to the brain to indicate that the pain or an injury is still existing in the amputated region. The third key chapter I would like to feature in this presentation are the artworks by contemporary artist Katerina Jeb. Her scanographic works of Frida's actual medical equipment, taken with a device very much like a photocopier machine, produces life-size prints of Frida's personal and used everyday medical equipment and orthopedic devices. Though we are still analyzing medical equipment in this sense, Katerina's work presents a more contemplative lens to view Frida's fragmented body and her human condition. Instead of hard science and medical analysis, Katerina intimately highlights the science of wear and use in Frida's personal medical objects, asking audiences if a material object can still hold the presence of its owner after they have passed away, and if so, how does an object evoke the pain, joy, and the soul of a life lived? As much as art is a universal language, it became apparent through the curatorial research of this exhibition that corporeal experiences are yet another universal language. The human body is at once personal, yet a unifying factor for all of us. It is our common thread, and is one of the reasons empathy exists. Laid Bare Frida's Inner World evokes the mission of ArtScience Museum, presenting the intersectionality of art, science, and culture. Frida's work and identity existed at this intersectionality. The exhibition's intimate look into Frida's physical body and medical history reminds us that Kahlo is more than just an icon in fine art and in popular culture. Firstly, she was human. She suffered chronic pain. She experienced sorrow, love, hope, and many other emotions. But more importantly, she was a woman who lived unabashedly, who found the courage to look her tragedy and pain head on, finding beauty in the human condition. She is an image of self-empowerment, and her legacy is a true testament to the nuance of fragility and resilient hope that exists in the human condition. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua, Gail, and Victoria for your joint presentation. Circe Henestrosa is our keynote speaker for today's program. As you heard, she's a fashion curator, and her research looks at tangible and intangible heritage to develop new design languages. Circe's curatorial practice explores how garments and material culture inform and reflect social cultural aspects of fashion within the exhibition context. She curated the critically acclaimed exhibition, Appearances Can Be Deceiving, the Dresses of Frida Kahlo at the Frida Kahlo Museum back in 2012, and she also co-curated the blockbuster exhibition, Frida Kahlo Making Herself Up at the Victoria and Albert Museum in 2018. As you heard as well, she's the curatorial advisor for Laid Bare, Frida's Inner World, and it's our honor welcoming Circe for her talk on representing Kahlo, curating empathy. Circe.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Honor. Again, the curatorial team, Gail, Joshua, Victoria, Adrian, for having me here. I'm so excited, and as you could see, what a special collection of medical documents we have here, plus that amazing immersive experience. But today, I'm gonna take you through the research I have been conducting with Kahlo's personal archive and her real objects. I have been working with this archive probably about 10 years. The first exhibition of Frida Kahlo's wardrobe, as you were saying, was presented at the Frida Kahlo Museum back in 2012, then at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London in 2018. After the London show, I wanted to present this exhibition in the places where Frida lived or spent time, and these were the cities of New York, San Francisco, and Paris. All these exhibitions are based on the discovery of her wardrobe back in 2004, and it looks at the ways in which experiences of disability, ethnicity, her political outlook, and her gender identity inform her life, her work, and her style. So my interest in the intersection between fashion, disability, and prosthetics comes from this exhibition, where I place disability as a central part of my research. So I will start talking, this is what I will cover today. I will present the Mexico show, then to move to the V&A Paris, and then I will move to my collaboration with Maria Grazia Curie for Dior. But I would like to start with a very important moment in fashion and disability. When Dazed and Confused Fashion Able issue was published in 1998, it seemed like there was a really exciting moment in fashion through the emergence of disability as a topic of focus. Alexander McQueen placed Amy Mullins, a double amputee Paralympic, on the cover of the magazine semi-naked and wearing her cheetah prosthetic legs, making a statement and questioning not only the way we design for different bodies, but also the way we look at the disabled body. For that issue, the disabled models were cast in a traditional way. The applicants were asked to send their pictures through an open call, and this generated such an overwhelming response that the editorial team decided to proceed with this issue. Jefferson Hack, who is the founder of Dazed, described how in this specific moment, of a historical moment for Dazed, it transformed the magazine. It was an interesting year also, 1998, as this is the same year when Jean-Paul Gaultier dedicated his spring-summer collection entitled Homage to Frida Kahlo to the famous Mexican artist. Unfortunately, nothing much happened after that. In fashion, after Dazed 1998, hardly anything was published. We can see more articles in fashion theory addressing fashion and disability coming from authors like Olga Weinstein, Helen Orsada, recently Lucy Jones at Parsons. And it was only when I published the first exhibition of Frida Kahlo at the Frida Kahlo Museum that fashion was picked up through this disability lens again. So a lot of people I talked to didn't even realize that Frida was severely disabled in different periods of her life. And when I started this research, I was interested in the disability and the ethnicity aspect of the wardrobe of her personal archive. I wanted to know how these two related with each other. I departed from the ethnicity part of the wardrobe because I have a personal story with this Tehuana dress. This ethnic dress comes from the Tehuantepec Isthmus, a matriarchal society located in the southeast part of Mexico, in Oaxaca. where women administrate the society. And my great aunties and my family on my father's side come from the Isthmus of Tehuantepec. And I am a wearer of this dress. But when Kahlo decided to adopt this ethnic dress from this matriarchal society, my aunties that you see here on this side were the ones bringing Kahlo her dresses from the Tehuantepec Isthmus, because Kahlo never went to this region. And it was them who brought them to Kahlo. So if you can see in this amazing photograph by Nicolas Moray, we see how Nereida is wearing the flower, the very famous Tehuana skirt with the flowers, and we see Frida wearing this skirt here as well. So this is the Blue House, today the Frida Kahlo Museum. And this is the place where Frida was born, lived, and died. In 2004, her wardrobe was discovered in the bathroom adjacent to her room. And it was this bathroom here where we discovered 22,000 documents, 6,000 photographs, and 300 personal objects of the artist. Her wardrobe is mostly composed of traditional Mexican pieces from Oaxaca, pieces from Puebla. We have some blouses from Guatemala, amazing pieces from China, as well as an interesting collection of European blouses, jewelry and accessories, shoes, makeup, and an amazing collection of orthopedic devices. What was interesting to me is also when I was looking through all these objects, my discipline is fashion, my discipline are garments. But I was looking at her paintings and her photographs to understand styling, how she would style these dresses. And immediately I realized that the way she was wearing these dresses was the same way she was painting herself wearing those dresses, and it was the same way she would photograph herself. So this means that all her creative production, all her different modes of creativity, painting, dressing, photograph, related with each other. Another interesting thing, as I was saying, I wanted to prove or understand why she had adopted this ethnic dress. And when the wardrobe was discovered, the photo of her maternal family was discovered. Most of the scholars say that she chose to wear the Tehuana dress to please Diego Rivera. And while I don't deny it totally, because they were inspiration to each other, this photograph proves that she had this legacy well before meeting Rivera. Because we see here how she circles her mother dressed in the Tehuana attire, where she puts Mama Matilde Calderon, 1890, at 7 years old. So the relationship I was telling you, she builds between photography, painting, and her body was present all the time. And this is what the exhibition I curated brought to light, how all these modes of creativity related with one another, which before discovering the wardrobe, we really didn't know. Because most of your typical exhibitions were showing Kahlo's work. But the fact that we discovered her wardrobe was the last bit to put everything together and to really prove that all these modes of creative production were related with one another. As Joshua and others have already explained, the accident and her disabilities will also inform her choice of dress. We know about the two events that happened, the accident at the age of 18, and then the polio that left her right leg shorter than the other. And Kahlo describes how she starts wearing 3 to 4 socks to level her legs. and she starts wearing also long skirts to start negotiating her body differences. And in this amazing photograph taken by Ishiushi Miyako, a Japanese photographer, and that represented Japan for the first time back in 2005, and also documented the remains of Hiroshima. I invited to come and document Kahlo's archive, and also Katerina Jeb that Joshua was presenting. But look at here how we see how the wardrobe shows this body, the asymmetry in her body. Again, we go back to also the construction of the dress. This is a dress that she adopts at the end of the 20s against the backdrop of the Mexican Revolution. We had a Minister of Culture, Jose Vasconcelos, that said the only way Mexico could come from the traumas of the revolution was through the promotion of education and culture. And this is the time when he commissions the great Mexican muralists to depict Mexican heritage in all these public buildings. Frida aligns herself to these ideals and chooses a dress. We have many dresses, very traditional dresses in Mexico, but she chooses a dress that makes her look very Mexican at the time where the fashion was Hollywood and was Paris. It's a dress that comes from a matriarchal society where powerful women are depicted through and represented through this dress. It was a dress that helped her convey her Mexicanidad, her political convictions as a communist, but also the geometry of the dress will inform this ability in her selection. Because if you see, the geometry of this dress shows us how it's composed by a headpiece, a short huipil, and a long skirt. All the adornment is concentrated from the torso up. That means that the viewer will always look at Frida from the torso up, so she managed to edit herself using this dress underneath of these beautiful fabrics. It was all her broken body, distracting the viewer from her broken spine and her legs. But a beautiful relation is the way she unveils it through her art. And this act of concealing and revealing is present all the time, again and again, in all the work she produces. The wheelchair, a lot of people didn't know she was also a wheelchair user. As I said, that she was disabled in different periods of her life. We see here, because of the construction of this specific dress, the short huipil doesn't crease, and when she's sitting down, she looks like a queen, and when she's standing, the same. So I'm now going to take you to, briefly, to the different exhibitions I curated and how I curated through a medical lens and then through a social lens. So here, when you enter the exhibition in Mexico, you have seen the Blue House, which is the physical place, today the Frida Kahlo Museum, where Frida was born, lived, and died, and where these objects were discovered. But when you enter this other part of the exhibition, where I exhibited her wardrobe for the first time, you are confronted with this disability wall. And this specific exhibition talk about her construction of style through disability and ethnicity, and then her influence in fashion in the avant-garde. So I wanted to confront people to this and stare at these objects, because staring is the time that the human eye takes to process new information. And when we look at the disabled body, we stare because we're not used to it. So it was deliberate. So we used the white tiles. This represents the origins of the bathroom where these objects were discovered, but also the time she spent in hospital, not as the doctor, but as the patient. I decided to start pairing the art and the objects in a very deliberate manner, we moved then to all her looks to show all the depictions of the famous Frida we know through this ethnicity and construction of style. This was against the wall, establishing those relationships. And this beautiful room talks about fragmentation, geometry and fragmentation. Here, I was working for this exhibition with also very renowned curator Judith Clark, who I was fortunate enough to work with me in this exhibition to design the show. So here, we decided to literally dissect her body into pieces, and it's into the pieces of her adornment, for people to concentrate on this idea of adornment. I'm going to show you some of the most beautiful objects that belong to Frida, so you can see how avant-garde she was. Look at those. Again, this is the only painting I could exhibit in this mini show, this small revision in Mexico. And I decided to place it against the contemporary fashion, because I also wanted to show not only those designers who looked at Frida through her flowers, or it was those, I wanted to put those designers who have seen Frida through the disability lens or through the ethnicity lens. So here we see a beautiful corset by Welsh designer Di Rees. We see a 2004 look by Comme des Garçons and Jean-Paul Gaultier. This is not his 98 homage, but this is another corset he did paying homage to Kahlo in 2004. If you see the tiles that were at the beginning, the tiles of the big wall now become the runway. So I end up with the amazing collection of Riccardo Tisci for Givenchy 2010, also depicting flowers, tradition. This is an homage to Frida Kahlo he pays, and it's almost as if he had seen this beautiful drawing I'm going to show you now, which was the key for all my research. This modest drawing, remember I was trying to understand how the orthopedic devices with the ethnic dresses related with each other. Again, us as curators, when we're going through the objects tell you so many things. When I discover this drawing, we see all of Kahlo's layers of identity. We see her naked. She puts her right leg significantly thinner than the left. We see the butterflies in her healthy leg. Butterflies represent possibility and transformation. Then we see her corset, and we see the silhouette of the Tehuana dress, and this is, the drawing is titled, "Appearances Can Be Deceiving," saying what you see is not what you get. And this is the moment when I start my PhD. And I wanted to I posed this question: can fashion exhibitions generate new visual languages capable of breaking barriers of visibility and invisibility traditionally associated with the disabled bodies? And I engaged in my PhD the minute the Victoria and Albert Museum in London confirmed that I could do this exhibition there. And this gave me the possibility to expand on those materials. Those paintings that I couldn't show in Mexico, those relationships I couldn't establish then as clearly as I wanted, I did that at the V&A. But what happened? Here we see appearances can be deceiving, and I always love to transition from show to show with another work of Kahlo. And Ganita and Corey, who was our curatorial advisor for the paintings, point me into the direction of this beautiful drawing where we see her making herself up, which is the title of the show in the UK. So here I'm gonna take you through a little bit of the way we curated the show in London and how I contextualized these objects for the first time outside Mexico. What happens in London? I don't have the Blue House. So I have to start from the beginning. So I had to introduce all her biographical history. And we did it through the work of her dad. Her father was a German emigre that arrives in Mexico at the beginning of the century. And he took some of the most iconic photographs of Kahlo. And we also discovered his works as a photographer. And we felt that it was a beautiful way to start introducing Kahlo's biographical story through the work of the father. And we have here the portrait of the mother and the father, showing her mixed heritage. Then here, we start bringing aspects of the way she starts posing from a very little age, how conscious she was on the poses she does. We put for the first time also, I start bringing the layers of her gender identity with this photograph. This is 1926, the first time we see her channeling this three-piece suit. We don't know if it was a three-piece suit that belonged to her father. And this is an amazing photograph of someone who is very confident dealing with her gender identity. In 1926, we didn't even have all the academic discourses we have now to discuss gender fluidity and all these things. So Frida was dealing with all these aspects of diversity from a very early age. Here we see how she's using photography to inform painting. The three-quarter pose. So all this becomes part of the layering I start bringing into this show. But what happens in London? In London, I could have never, ever done that installation I did in Mexico. So here, I decided to put a much more softer installation, something that was much more with a social lens to disability. So there are two medical lenses, basically. Your medical lens that will tell you the medical condition of the person, and the social discourses that come later in the 90s from academics from the UK, where they look at the disabled body as a social construct. So in the UK, I wanted people to feel these objects, to be in Frida's shoes, to come to a very soft and not stare but look, to have empathy, to feel the relationship. Whether you were disabled or not, you will relate yourself with this. The way I place the photograph, you are looking, you come and she's looking at you. The way you are looking at her, at the same time you're looking very respectfully at her orthopedic devices. So this is Mexico with the metal bars, symbolizing the metal bar that cross her pelvic bone from one side to the other, leaving her with the impossibility of conceiving children ever. You see here the metaphor of the bed where she spends so much time in wood. So the materials to convey all these visual narratives are so important. And it's so interesting because Jordi, I work with the real objects. It's completely the opposite. And then it's also how the virtual reality also has the possibility to convey these messages. But at least I can share how I was looking and how I have worked with these objects in different parts of the world. So this is the last room where we see Frida, a celebration surrounded by all her paintings. Now we move to Paris. So here in Paris, it was, again, paying homage to fashion. Paris being the capital of fashion, I wanted to bring fashion back. And I start with that text of Alexander McQueen. So I place McQueen, the corsets of McQueen, this is his time in Givenchy, where McQueen became McQueen, where he was already exploring again with the female body, with the anatomy of the body. And for me, it was important to place this and pay now homage to McQueen, being that person bringing fashion in 1998. I placed this installation of contemporary fashion in the fashion gallery, and Frida was underneath, exactly under this installation of Frida's corsets. And this famous Gaultier homage, also from 1998, making reference to his famous, to her famous broken column. I place here almost as a phantasmagoric installation against the backdrop of her medicines. So you see the Gaultier there. So what I want to say with this is that my critical discourse happens in the space. I'm thinking about these texts, I'm bringing all these different thoughts and theories that then I bring back into the space. And here, for the first time, I took the heads away. And this was a bold move because her headpiece is so important. And it's so difficult to curate anything Kahlo without a headpiece. But here, I decided to be surrounded by all her paintings, by her photographs, so we could see her image through the real Frida and just concentrate the viewer in her garment. So this was done in Paris. So before I move to Dior, I just put together some of the words that I feel represent the work I developed in terms of inclusivity, sustainability, empathy, experience, creativity, diversity, identity, but also making meaning, also engagement with aesthetics. So when Maria Grazia Curie went to the show in Mexico, at the V&A, that was the first time she saw my work, and then she came to the show in Paris. And then she called me. And I was like, they told me, do you have time to meet Maria Grazia today or tomorrow? And I was like, oh yeah, maybe, let me see. Of course I do. And when she talked to me, she said how inspired she was by the way I had told the story of Frida. And it was something really interesting because she said, you came back to fashion in the show in Paris and you made it again about the garments. And that inspired me a lot. And that's because in the installation in Paris where you saw the photographs, I did literally biographical construction of her dress from little till all the way to she became the Tehuana. But she could see that in a linear way because I wanted to make that very clear to the viewer, how I was talking about the polio, the accident, as I was dropping her looks through the photographs. Anyway, so she tells me she wants to do her Dior Cruise Collection 2024 for Dior, inspired by Frida. If she could use the exhibition as inspiration, I said, yeah, of course, just take whatever you want, and then she will create. But I was very interested when she said that she wanted to bring what in France called the Mexican savoir-faire. And that means she wanted to integrate Mexican artisans as part of the collection. So I went back to the drawing board, and I went back to Frida's archive, but now I was looking again back to her Mexican garments that at the beginning I was saying came from Puebla, Oaxaca, and Chiapas. So I selected these 3 states for us to concentrate, and I chose those artisans not only that are innovating in their craft, that are representing what I call the future of crafts in a way that is intelligent, innovative, that is not only the traditional way, but it's how do we preserve this craftsmanship in the future for them not to die. So this is Ilan, who is he's studying anthropology, and he is the most gifted 26-year-old weaver from La Sierra Norte de Puebla, look at his work. Intricate, beautiful, the most incredible embroideries and weaves you've ever seen. And this is the way we translated it into the Dior collection. This is beautiful, the anecdote, because when we came to the Sierra Norte in the mountains, Maria Grazia really had to go out and breathe and come back, and because it was so much beauty, and she wanted to find a way to work with Ilan, and Ilan was so scared, and he was like, it was too overwhelming also for him, and he said, well, these are just my samples, and I cannot give you any of my samples at this point. And I said, do you know how much you want to charge? And he said, no, I don't know. And then I said, Maria Grazia, we cannot give you anything of Ilan at this point. And she said, okay, don't worry. What about if Ilan comes to Paris? And he brings everything, and he works with me to create this together. And again, for me, it was very important because Mexico had suffered a lot of plagiarism cases in fashion recently. And the law had been published in Mexico back in 2022, in January, the law to protect Mexican indigenous communities and their material, textile material culture had been launched then. So I said, okay, this is a good opportunity for us to test it. So these are other examples. This is Remigio Mestas, an expert, also cultural anthropologist that has been working in the state of Oaxaca. So these are the huipiles we created with Remigio. So this says, we use, with Ilan was the Pepenado de Ilvan. So here we have huipil Jalapa, it's this one, sorry, the blue one. We have a huipil from Valle Nacional, which is this one, and then huipil de Cadenilla. Then we go to see Don Pedro. Don Pedro is amazing. He's really something. He has created the first co-op in Mexico. He started in 1985. He was an expert in weaving techniques in Chiapas, and also very innovative in cultural sustainability and preservation of the textiles. So he did this amazing interpretation of the bar jacket. And these amazing women are the women of Tijaltepec. And with them, we look at how they dress. With them, we created the 1957 interpretation also of the bar jacket created by Dior with the integration of her textile material culture. So the law is very clear. The law says that people working with Mexican communities cannot alter the iconography. They have to recognize and give credit to the community. They have to produce in the community, and they have to compensate the community. And that's what we did. And I want to show you a little bit of the marketing materials we did for Dior, because for me also was very important that the message was conveyed in a manner that was respectful and that was true to the to Mexican heritage.
Era modista y desde niña yo sabía de Christian Dior. La misma sorpresa para la diseñadora fue ver cómo hacen este trabajo. Que no hay un taller, el taller es el paisaje. Están en constante movimiento, caminan mucho y ahí van hilando.
Pues siempre tenemos que estar juntas para poder seguir el mismo ritmo. Contamos uno por uno hasta que tengan igual los cuadros para que igual salga idéntico al otro.
En su contexto es una mujer que guarda silencio, pero creo que con su ropa grita muchas cosas. La técnica se llama pepenado fruncido. Lo que ellas hacen es comenzar a desgarrar la tela y con el hilo van plasmando la figura y van haciendo línea por línea. Un poco como la impresora de inyección de tinta. Así como la arquitectura nos deja testigos de la historia, el textil también lo es. Hacemos cosas de mucha calidad y está hecho todo en Oaxaca a mano por mujeres de Oaxaca.
And I would like to end with a shot. Okay. Thank you.
Well, our final speaker in the program is Lidia Riveros. Lidia is a Singapore-based curator of Mexican art and culture, and she's very passionate about bridging people and cultures through positive engagement, storytelling, and cultural activities. More than a decade ago, Lidia started organizing community installations dedicated to the Day of the Dead. She also oftentimes collaborates with Mexican artisans on art and cultural projects here in Singapore, whose expertise and passion for their craft really help to showcase the beauty of Mexican culture. Lidia's work is expressed wonderfully through the commissioned installation, Floral Passage, a tribute to Frida, which you can find downstairs on our basement too. And I'm delighted to welcome Lidia to share more about the work that brings Mexican traditions to the heart of Frida Forever season, and with the installation standing as a heartfelt tribute to Frida's enduring legacy. Please welcome Lidia.
Hola. Hola, buenas tardes. ¿Sí, me oyen? Okay. Today I'm wearing a Tehuana dress from Tehuantepec, especially because probably this one distracts you because I think my public speaking is not my strength. So probably you will distract her by this beautiful dress. And also, of course, is after Circe, what a wonderful, wonderful talk. It was really inspiring and amazing, really wonderful. Congratulations. So we'll start with Viva la Vida. And I think the ambassador of Mexico, thank you for being here, will say better than me. Ambassador, Viva la Vida. Viva la Vida. You see, that's the thing. So, this is mainly one of the content that we're going to see today in this presentation. I want to talk about the Mexican flower arch, a bit of a history, and then the inspiration that, of course, all the previous speakers, they were talking about Frida Kahlo, and that now we know much about her. Actually, now it will really reflect where the inspiration of that arch has been the Casa Azul, Frida's flowers crown, Frida's heart, and the Otomi designs. That is the context of this talk. So I paint flowers so they will not die. I begin with this quote from Frida Kahlo for her mastery of the use of flowers and colors in her personal life and in her art, which has been one of my inspiration to create this installation. The arch has been an architectural and decorative element used by many civilizations throughout history. In ancient times, Romans, Greeks, and others used arches regularly in the building and monuments, showcasing their engineering skill and to celebrate their victories. The famous Colosseum on the left-hand side, built between 70 and 80 AD, is a great example. Another iconic example is the Arch of Triumph, commissioned by Napoleon I after one of his great victories. In Mexican culture, the use of arches has been a long history rooted in tradition and symbolism. One notable example is the arco floral or flower arch, mainly seen in Mexican festivals and celebrations. These arches are often decorated with flowers such as marigold, roses, and dahlias, reflecting the Mexico floral heritage. Originated from indigenous Mesoamerican cultures, the use of flowers, including in arches, has been a long tradition in Mexico. However, the specific form of the flower arch as we see it today has evolved over time, mixing indigenous practices with colonial influence. One of the most iconic use of flower arch is during Day of the Dead, or Dia de Muertos celebration. In many parts of Mexico, community creates elaborated arches of marigold, or as we call it in Mexico, cempasúchil, which are believed to guide the spirits of the deceased back to the world of the living during the holiday. These arches serve as bright and fragrant pathways for the souls of the loved ones who return and unite with their families. Additionally, flower arches are used in weddings, fiestas, religious procession, and other cultural events throughout Mexico. They symbolize welcome passages, hospitality, celebration, and showcase the beauty of Mexican flora. The construction of Mexican flower arch is often a community effort, with friends, family, and neighbors coming together to build and decorate it. It is a collaborative process to promote family ties, social bonds, and community spirit. You see here, I put these three pictures of three examples of previous Dia de Muertos that I have built here in Singapore, and then three different occasions. And yes, it's a community effort, and I try to reproduce it also here in Singapore. Overall, the Mexican flower arch, it's a symbol of cultural heritage, community, unity, and the rich Mexican traditions. As some of you may have noticed, another major source for inspiration for this installation is the famous Frida's house, or as is known, La Casa Azul. For this exhibition, we tried to reproduce the entrance to La Casa Azul to symbolize entering into a more intimate part of Frida's life and the wonderful universe she created inside of this iconic house. As you can see, this is two different arches to go inside to her house. But not always they have these arches. In many specific occasions that really is welcome or celebration, they use it in the main entrance. As we step closer to the arch, we enter a world where colors speak louder than words, and flowers come together to create a story. This is where you will find the essence of Frida's life, an art which reflects our shared heritage. Like Frida herself, the installation is a symbol of resilience in the face of adversity, especially if the visitors start to pull out the handmade raffia flowers and it keeps standing up at the end of this exhibition, right? The resilience will be there. One of the main inspirations of the installation is the way Frida personally chose colored flowers in her iconic crowns and dresses. Also, she not only used flowers in the way she dressed up, but she applied the same principle in her work, as you can see here. What is more, colorful birds, butterflies, and other animals are also important in her work and life. And this is why, on the installation, we have birds and butterflies that take flight from the arch. These are designed to mirror Frida's free spirit and her boundless capacity for self-transformation. I will also suggest you take a moment and reflect as you stand beneath the arch. Think about what it means to be in the presence of a legacy of beauty, strength, and true creativity. And just as Frida art continues to inspire new generations, so too does her fighting spirit and her love of life and beauty. Time for another quotation. Fall in love with yourself, with life, then with whoever you want. This is a person that actually got her priority right. The centerpiece of this installation is the symbol of a heart with flames radiating from the top. This is a sacred heart used in Christian art, which symbolizes a milagro or a charm that represents love, healing, and gratitude. And in the Mexican popular culture, it is often referred to as Frida's heart. This symbol not only reflects Frida's personal struggles and triumph, but also the larger themes on Mexican culture of resilience and female empowerment. As we continue to admire and celebrate Frida's artistry, her flaming heart serves as a timeless reminder of the power of creativity, courage, and resilience in the face of adversity. You can read in the heart Frida forever, as we hope this flame will continue touching the hearts of many people that come to see the exhibition, and others who will come in contact with the story and the art of Frida. Otomi designs. These designs originated from Otomi people, an indigenous group from central Mexico. Otomi designs are beautiful forms of traditional Mexican art, often characterized by their detailed and colorful patterns of animals, plants, and other elements of nature. These Otomi designs are typically created through a technique called blind embroidery, or embroidery by memory, where the artisans work without a pre-drawn pattern, relied only on their memory and creativity. This results in unique and expressive pieces that showcase the rich cultural heritage of the Otomi people. Otomi designs are not just visually striking, they also serve as storytelling mediums. These wonderful patterns often bring to life folk stories portraying scenes of tradition, legends, rituals, and celebrations. So in choosing the Otomi designs for this installation, I was drawn to the rich array of colors, which beautifully capture the essence of Frida's art, life, and the vibrancy of Mexico itself. Frida's iconic style often features beautiful flowers and dresses, which always bursts with life and energy. However, to showcase each of these individually will require a much larger space than we have available, or at least I was offered to. By using automated designs, I am aiming to stress Frida's love of color in a more comprehensive and compact manner. Also, it serves to recognize Frida's support of artisan and indigenous people and the folk arts. This installation is more just an artistic display. It is a testament to the power of color, creativity, and cultural expression to inspire and uplift us all. After all, celebrating Frida's is a celebration of Mexico's heritage and its enduring legacy and impact on our collective history. In closing, as we honor Frida, let us carry forward her timeless wisdom and powerful spirit. In her own words, she reminds us that I am my own muse. I am the subject I know best, the subject I want to know better. May we all find inspiration in her courage, resilience, and commitment to self-expression. As we continue our journey, may we remember that, like Frida, we each have the power to transform our pain into art, our struggles into strength, and our dreams into reality. Now, before I let you go, please allow me to thank the ArtScience Museum for their invitation of collaboration, and thank you to the curatorial team, especially Gail, Victoria, and Joshua, who have been very supportive. And of course, a big thanks to my wonderful team, Adriana Reyes and Gaby Armas, for their tireless work to make this installation a reality. Thank you for joining us in celebrating the life and legacy of Frida Kahlo, a shining example of creativity, authenticity, and empowerment, a true icon of art and courage. Thank you.
Well, Adrian, we are seeing an incredible slate of shows in the international ecology that are recognizing the historical prominence of women artists and reframing the conversation as well. So it's really important that I ask this question, which is, what were the intentions behind staging the Frida exhibitions in our space as part of the lineup for the thematic, the Year of the Extraordinary Women here at ArtScience Museum? Could you share a little bit about the thinking behind that?
Yes, so the Year of Extraordinary Women was about 2 years in preparation, so we were working towards that for quite a while, and it started a couple of years ago with our Patricia Piccinini exhibition, and then the focus that Gail actually produced with Honor and the rest of the curatorial team on an exhibition called New Eden, which had a focus on women artists from Asia. And then we had been looking for a solo show from a woman artist to kind of complete that season of exhibitions. And when we encountered the options around Frida Kahlo, we had no choice but to rest on that particular woman, extraordinary artist, a life lived short and fast, but an incredible icon who came to prominence at a time when it was almost impossible for women artists to get a showcase, let alone to reach the level of international fame that she did. And then the other layer that made it so relevant to ArtScience Museum was the focus on the medical apparatus and her challenging medical life. And working with Circe and the doctors that we had brought in from Singapore, and with the extraordinary archive available to us through Cristina Carlo Alcala, it just really enhanced the whole experience and made it something, Jordi mentioned it earlier, so specific to ArtScience Museum. So it became an absolutely essential part of the Year of Extraordinary Women.
This was something that struck me as I finally got to see the two shows adjacent to each other. I wanted to ask a follow-up question for maybe to you, Adrian, as well as Gail. What are your thoughts now that you see these two shows together in our space? How did they turn out compared to what you might have had in mind? And has your relationship in terms of like developing the shows up until the eventual presentation of the shows physically in our space changed in any way for you?
I think we are all very happy how both shows turn out. If you have the chance to go down and see the exhibitions later, you'll see that, especially for Frida Kahlo, Life of an Icon, has a stronger celebratory sort of tone where we really took a lot of inspiration from the content that was written by Layers of Reality, and especially the immersive language, the digital art that were created through a contemporary lens really lifted the show as well, and has very strong storytelling that you literally can hear, look, feel, and kind of touch by Frida's story. Whereas Laid Bare has a more intimate look that really suggests that you are, kind of in a hospital. Frida Kahlo spent a considerable amount of time in the hospital where she recovered from her surgeries, but also the kind of authority that she brings in, her personal belongings, her art materials, that really kind of claim, that space. And, of course, we have Christina's collection of the medical documents. We have the contemporary analysis from the doctors, and also, we have Circe, who has been, a strong guiding hand. And Katharina Jepp's sort of images, that also bring in her lived experience as also someone who is disabled, really just weave the story and both experiences together.
I'm going to add on, because I can't stop talking about Frida Kahlo now. For me, the biography, the immersive biography that Layers of Reality put together is kind of important journey on the way to seeing Laid Bare. There are so many layers to her. Her first boyfriend, Alejandro Gomez Arias, said that there were many Fridas. And that was at a time when she was still a teenager, that he thought there were many Fridas. And I think that now throughout her life, she developed more and more Fridas. And aside from the extraordinary woman, the extraordinary image, the fashion, the jewelry, the Mexican culture, she was also really, really smart. She was going to be a doctor. But beyond that, she was very strategic in how she managed her relationship with Diego, how she managed her relationship with the art world. She put a lot of thought into how she was going to direct her career. And that all comes through the immersive biography, and it informs everything that comes after it. So I think it's a useful component. And then Laid Bare is this hard stop at the end, which is like a slap in the face of reality.
I especially appreciated getting to lean into Circe and Lidia's presentations and the themes that each of you had prioritized in your curation and your art making to reflect the complexity of Frida's identity and also her legacy. And the fact that Frida is often evaluated in terms of her biography has been discussed a lot in the past, of course, but it's also important to see her, I think, not only her, but all women artists beyond this perspective. So perhaps a question for both of you then. How do you see the role of curators evolving in the context of contemporary exhibitions that are staged and centered around such iconic, multifaceted artists like Frida Kahlo? Could we get you to share your thoughts maybe?
Okay. For me, the role of the curator is extremely important because we hold a great responsibility to treat these materials with respect and accuracy. At the same time, you create evocative visual narratives that can allow people to be closer to these stories and learn. That learning aspect is very, very important to all of us. The role of the museum that honor is directing here and the programs the Science Museum is putting together, that aspect of learning is at the core, at the heart of this museum. And yeah, and as I shared yesterday, for me was important when Joshua and Gail invited me to collaborate with them in this project, was, you know, find ways in which this unknown archive outside the United States or Mexico could be contextualized in a way that made sense without having all the other, you know, kind of like in my case where I had all the original objects, all her corsets. It's easier, you know, in a way for me to place and tell the story when I have all the you know, her creative production together. So for us, I think it was challenging, and I agree with Adrian, the immersive experience will help to give kind of that bigger picture when then we can zoom into these specific materials and that medical story that for me was interesting and another challenge to make it work. And Joshua and Gail also brought this idea, something that usually you will use as your research resource, like your interviews with the doctors. That's something we did in Mexico when we were trying to understand all the medical. We were having these interviews, but they were the ones saying, oh, we would like to place the videos of the doctors talking about this. And I found that super interesting. I was like, yeah, sure, that's great. And yeah, so, Lidia?
Well, for me as a curator of artisans, artists, and Mexican folk art, it really, I think everything is down to research. I think to bring something authentic, to take your time, to give the respect to the artisan, to people back in Mexico, and to let know people and to share our culture, actually for me is something very important, and I feel very responsible for that. So I work hand in hand with the Embassy of Mexico, and yes, the ambassador sometimes can be very strict as well. So yes, I think it's very important to share something that is real and is authentic.
And another thing to add is the idea of the diverse teams. I do work with diverse teams around the world, and this museum pay a lot of attention in including that Mexican nuance in terms of not only because of the research I have in terms of all these diverse themes around Kahlo or my scholarship, but also the fact that you are Mexican, bringing these nuances in terms of the language and how to interpret this also from that perspective. And I think that added a voice within the teams, the diversity as a team we had, no? From the doctors to the local teams to Adrian is from Britain, I'm from Mexico, Lidia, and you know, so that diversity also brings a mix to the curatorial outcomes.
Yeah, it's a shared understanding around multiplicity when it comes to exhibitions and programs making here. So we appreciate you kind of highlighting that. Questions from the audience. Do we have someone? Oh, okay, we'll come to you. The gentleman in the middle, please.
Thank you. First, I want to congratulate all of you. It has been a very insightful discussion. One of the reasons why I really like Frida personally, besides her art, is her fashion. So my question goes to Circe. And I think that, as you have mentioned, her legacy when it comes to fashion is also a legacy that incorporates gender diversity and inclusion and identity, etc. So I'm curious, when you are working with contemporary fashion designers and big fashion houses, how's that creative process in order for them to get inspiration from Frida Kahlo's legacy, but at the same time to preserve her message of defying contemporary beauty standards, especially in the times that we are living now, that everything seems like very perfect and very Instagram worthy. So how to actually honor her fashion legacy and at the same time making it commercial and something that sells?
Well, fashion historian Valerie Steele says that if fashion picks it or gets inspiration from, it's because it's good. And a lot of designers have got inspiration, but how not to? A lot of artists creative designers, it goes across the board. She has inspired not only creatives, she continues to inspire us because her paintings and her as a woman and her experiences continue speaking to us. And I always said she was ahead of her time because, again, it's a discussion we were having, no, Adrian, is she was so ahead of her time that this is the reason why she is so relevant today, because as you correctly said, she was already discussing themes of diversity, of gender identity, disability, ethnicity, the female body. I would say more the experience through the female body. She is the first woman to depict a miscarriage in such way for when she presents Henry Ford Hospital. As far as I'm concerned, nobody had ever painted a miscarriage the way she did it, with blood coming out of her, female organs, etc. So in terms, the way they pick up, like designers pick up fashion, is their choice because it's as inspiration. My responsibility in the project with Dior was to make sure that the communities were treated as an equal level, at the same level of the designer. And that was the articulation, and for me it was important that that was respected, and that happened, I can tell you, at all times. I'm not sure if I answered the question, but
I've got an interesting little factoid. Her dad was a photographer. When she was a kid, she was often working in the studio, kind of hand coloring and making perfect the black and white photographs that her dad had made. So doing that, even during her early childhood, she was about perfection. So what fascinates me is that as she gets older, she just throws that all to one side. And she doesn't really care about perfection anymore. And her image is very controlled, it's very managed, but it's not perfect. And I think that speaks to right now. It's very contemporary, the idea of diverse bodies and representation of disability and other types of bodies in fashion and in all sorts of media.
Yeah, and the way she highlights her masculine features and the hybridization she creates through the paintings. She was wearing the mustache, and she says how she likes making emphasis in her male features.
Thank you for the very considered question. Do we have another one from the audience? All right, can we have a mic for Mr. Go, please?
Hi, thanks for the insightful talk. All of you have probably done a lot of research about Frida Kahlo. If you had the opportunity to go back in time to pass a message to her or to ask her anything, is there something that you would like to share? Thanks.
I love that you always ask a question that could be the perfect concluding question for the Q&A, but we'll just bring it forward a little bit. So a message that you could share with Frida herself in person, if you could go back in time.
My moment is I would tell her not to go to Paris. To meet No. She shouldn't go to Paris and meet Andre Breton. That was not a good move. Because she did not enjoy that experience because her work was positioned alongside all these kind of trinkets that Andre Breton had picked up in Mexico, and I think she was really unhappy with that. I mean, she did have a great relationship with Andre Breton's wife, but
yes.
I don't think it was a great move for her artistically.
Well, Adrian, he's an art critic and historian, so then he's like, don't go there. Okay, for me, Paris was when looking at that aspect. It's a place where she meets, where she forged very important friendships with female artists. And the interesting point there, Adrian, to add, because I agree with you, she didn't enjoy her time in Paris. But this is the time where she meets Dora Maar and Jacqueline Lamba, who was the wife of André Breton. And it's interesting because there was these three women who were very strong in their artistic practice in their own right, but all of them married or their partners were very strong in dominating male, like figures in art, André Breton and Picasso and Diego Rivera, oh my God. So, but it's really nice how they were producing their art and they forged this companionship, kind of, and that happens really in Paris, which I think is something she valued that support among those female artists. But I agree with you, it was a tough time for her there. Mi mensaje? Okay, I mean, that's such a difficult question. Rarely someone left me speechless. And I would say thank you. Thank you for everything she did and for everything she's left us. And the way she portrayed those paintings, the way she wanted us to remember her, we've kept her very close to our hearts. Thank you.
I think I will say to her that it will come difficult times for her, but don't change anything. I mean, the way you are, it will inspire many people to come. I think just live your life.
I'll ask her not to go for the spinal fusion surgery because that is where a lot of complications, health issues, begin. She could have lived a longer life. She could have produced, more paintings. Yeah. Yeah, maybe different paintings as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Go, for your question. Any other questions from an audience member? Okay. Oh, all right. The lady in front. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for putting together such an amazing exhibition and a talk today. I feel like even though she's not been with us for 7 years, it's tangible how the culture is still alive and it's lived, just hearing how you're talking about the different artisans who've worked with your since Miss Lidia, about working with communities in Singapore to continue to do this work. I feel like that sense of the community is so strong in everything you've spoken about today. One thing stood out to me as almost being this little blip of something other was one of the photos of her in the Chinese outfit in her courtyard after one of her surgeries. And I know that there were some examples of either Chinese or Japanese embroidery, and it was something that was so strikingly different than what we normally see her in. And one of my wonderings is maybe through some of your research, if you could maybe speak to some of her awareness of other cultures and other uses of fabric and how maybe that might have influenced her. How did that connection come to Frida?
Well, we didn't know much about the Chinese pieces at the time I was preparing the exhibition. And then there was an archive of letters in the US that was left. I think it was part of the collection of Dr. Eloeser. And there were a lot of letters to her mom, where she describes how she starts, where she finds all these Chinese pieces in Chinatown in San Francisco. and how she was fascinated by all the embroideries, and she was fascinated by the Chinese children and all the fabrics. So this is where we think all this, where she got hold of all these Chinese pieces. And of course, you know, she was a communist, and she had like the photograph of all her favorite communist leaders, and Mao Zedong among them, and yeah. So she was incredibly well read. If you go to her library, she was very curious about many cultures. Say she was looking at different periods of history of arts. Her library comprises. She was very interested in poetry. There's a very important book of Walt Whitman's poems. So yeah, and that's another way also to look at the way the artists, the books they have give you also a lot of information of the interests they have, and her library is really, really broad.
I absolutely agree. The first time she set eyes on Diego Rivera is because she went to a lecture that he was giving, and she was interested in finding out about Russia. So she had a lot of interest in other countries, other cultures, and that just continued when she was in the US.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always say that right after she met Rivera in 29, she went to the US. So in San Francisco, she finalizes her Tehuana look as a foreigner there. In New York, she becomes the political Frida because she had a lot of conflicts with the social classes there and capitalism. And in Detroit, in 1932, she becomes in the taboo-breaking artist we know today when she paints that miscarriage.
Thank you for the wonderful feedback you have for the program and the exhibition, and that lovely question. Do we have another question from the audience? Otherwise, I would love to ask this to all of you, and it's come up a little bit, I guess, in your presentations, but also, I guess, from the comments from the audiences as well. Why do you think Frida's work strikes us today as being more alive, pertinent, and impactful more than ever, in your personal perspective?
Because I'm the outspoken one, is it? Okay, fine. I think if the word intersectionality had been bandied around in the 1920s, Frida would have completely embodied it. And I think there are so many layers to her, so many characters, so many things that she had to deal with, that every aspect of her life and her work can speak to one of us in a different way. And so I think she has something to tell everybody. And that's why I think she continues to garner the attention and to increasingly be the icon that she became. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I agree with you. Definitely different layers that can speak to many people. Personally, for me, I think the way she handled herself as a woman in such a time of revolution, of a very Mexican machism on the time, I mean, it's unbelievable, because we see it today, the struggle of women try to really get the rise and recognition, and I don't know, it's just also somebody that can see and can articulate really wonderfully is that the advantage to be a man in that time, in such a culture, you know, it was so striking, and then she take it and she reinvent herself. I myself have that doubt and that thought when I was a child in Mexico, why I was not a guy. I mean, they have everything. My mom even let me go out, I has to be at home, and my brother easily can go and play with all the friends. So you see, in that aspect, I can see her how she flourished. She was so, I don't know, so free in doing things, and she didn't give a damn of anything. And I admire her so much, and I'm sure many women can reflect in that. Even though in that time there were no the pigeonhole of feminism, she was definitely, probably an inspiration for feminism as it is at the time. It is my inspiration. Thank you.
Kind of adding on to what Lidia says, also quite similar to mine, is also to be all-embracing. Again, I grew up in a traditional household, so there is a lot of expectations, you know, from both my parents. So it's really breaking, you know, that societal norms, you know, and also embracing, you know, your imperfections, no matter where you are, who you are, as long as you live your life in your own terms. I think that's one thing that, you know, I've really learned from how Frida, you know, kind of courageously live her life.
Well, I've been working with all these materials for so long, and for me, again, as I said yesterday as well, is the way she managed to break so many taboos about the female body and the female experience in creative ways, in ways to deal, you know, the way she dealt with trauma in that creative capacity, how she didn't allow the disabilities define her, but she defined who she was in her own way. And that strength and possibility and resilience makes her a symbol, a contemporary symbol that remains today. Again, as we were all saying, is because she speaks to many diverse audiences. So her iconic image represents hope and possibility for change.
I think we're in the exactly right place to conclude the symposium today. Circe and Lidia, it's been such a privilege getting to lean into your stories, your practices, and your work. Thank you for bringing your perspective and insights not only to the exhibition, but also to the opening program for Frida Forever. And wonderful thanks to Adrian, Gail, Joshua, Victoria for your presentation. Honor for opening remarks. I'd love to acknowledge the working team today. My education colleague Sue, who was tending to front of house all afternoon, our museum services team, who's responsible for the seamless delivery on technical production of the symposium, and my public programs colleague Zhang, as well as Liana, who have been our trusty producers for today's event. We're always interested to know how we can shape better programs for all of you. We'll be grateful if you could spare a couple of minutes just to fill in a short survey for us so that we can do better. And we hope you get a chance to experience both Frida, the life of an icon, and laid-bare Frida's inner world, if you haven't managed to as well. And also perhaps come by for the beautiful season of programming that centers around Frida's legacy. That's wholly vivid. She has been this example of strength, and her story is such a strength-giving story, and we can lean into a story as a way of understanding our own. And for me, this is Frida's gift. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming to the opening program for Frida Forever. We thank you for being part of the ArtScience Museum story and hope to see you back at the museum again. Please enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you so much, everyone.